Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan with Fireside Yankees, and I'm joined with a very special guest, right-handed pitching prospect Sean Boyle with the Yankee organization. Sean, how you doing today, my friend? I'm really happy to have you on the show.
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Absolutely. And kind of the first thing that I wanted to get at was you're coming back from a significant injury and significant surgery. And I kind of wanted to pick your brain on some of the unexpected challenges you faced throughout this rehab process. And honestly, it's just great to see you healthy too, as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thankful to be back healthy as well. I guess first and foremost, that's new territory for me, and I'm sure a lot of players will say the same. Like, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, and then next thing you finish surgery, you're in a sling, and or whatever the surgery might be, and then you're just looking out ahead and trying to figure out how am I going to stack these days and come back better or come back. Period. So there's a lot of uncertainty with that. So I think that was like the biggest hurdle is, aside from admitting something was wrong and let's fix it. Okay, now how do we navigate this new territory?
Yeah, and look, I mean, number one, I can't imagine how hard that process is. And number two, I know that spring training results don't matter a ton, but it's got to feel good to be on the mound and have a pretty strong spring. You've had a 2.92 ERA. You've kept the ball on the ground. You've missed the bats. Can you kind of talk to me about how a strong spring training has affected your confidence knowing you're battling back from injury?
I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt. That's for sure. You get out there and you have that success coming back from, this is probably the most difficult thing I've had to deal with in my baseball career. So, to come back from it and to face, some of the best hitters I've gotten to face to this point, and then you have a, margin of success to any degree, it's like, that feels really good. And it does bode to the confidence heading into the season. So, yeah, I'm really happy to be healthy and glad that things are feeling good and I'm able to go out there and, start doing my thing again.
Yeah, and kind of sticking a little bit to that injury and spring training conversation. Look, no one wants to see injuries. Fans are obviously really unhappy to know that Garrett Cole is going to be out for the year and that Luis Seal is going to be out for at least 3 months. But you have to view it almost as opportunity. I mean, these are guys who had jobs that are now open for pitchers in the minor leagues to perhaps take. Can you kind of talk to me about how those rotation injuries potentially change your mindset at all, if it does?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sucks, and like I've gotten to get pretty close with Luis Gil and, see him on his rehab from Tommy John, and then to see him get called up and, last year is the, one of the, what's it called? He made the rotation, out of camp, having been sent back. And it's like getting to know him, see the work he put in, the journey, the path, how it all led up. And then, bang, he's in the big leagues. Now he's dealing with another, it just friggin' sucks. Even if I didn't have surgery, it sucks to see that. Now that I've experienced that, I'm like, oh, damn, like he worked his ass off. He got back, he was having a dominant year and now he's got to battle another hump. It's like, you don't wish that on anybody. It's the absolute worst. As far as does it change anything for me? I would say no, because the whole way that I've gone about my business is like, hey, I need to focus on what I'm able to do each day. I can't worry about what's going to happen with the guy to my left or the guy to my right or the decisions that may fall. It's like the only thing that I have control of is how I can go about my business, how I can prep for each outing and put myself in the best position to have success, and then put myself in the best position for when an opportunity comes up, go ahead and own it, you know what I mean, and make the most of it. So I try not to think too much about anything changing as far as opportunity goes. And it's just, again, it kills me to see guys, going down, especially now. I got to live it, the past year and a half, and I understand that it's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just kind of, in the context of injury conversations, I mean, I think people kind of forget how hard it is to forecast these things, or to even, like, you can prepare as well as you can, and these things can still happen. But putting some of the, I guess, more grim topics in the mirror, and talking about something that I thought was super interesting when looking to your profile and kind of the way the game has changed. look, baseball's a very velocity centric sport, and you're not someone who throws 97, 98. Can you kind of talk about how you handle pitching in that kind of environment where the value is kind of pushing towards velocity, but you're relying a lot on movement?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there in your phrasing, which the pitching aspect of it. Like, I've worked hard to increase my ability, to my power output, and I've definitely made strides, but my game is clearly, hey, I'm going to have to go out there and pitch. I'm going to have to be a guy that, is going to keep the batters off balance and make them swing at my best pitch. You know what I mean? So as far as like, the era of baseball we're in that's surrounded around velocity, like I'm proud to say, hey, I'm competing at a high level with, what I'm able to do, especially considering the environment I'm in. And yeah, it's challenging, and I'm going out there pushing and trying to find different ways to unlock, maybe a mile an hour here or there or whatever. But moral of the story for how I go about it is like, I understand who I am, and I'm going to go out there and, change speeds, keep these guys off balance, and use everything I have and do the best I can to read. I'm just, again, as the game, I got to pitch and I got to keep them off balance. And so it makes it fun. It's a different look.
Yeah, and with the Yankees, I feel like they do a really good job of emphasizing the strengths of a pitcher. Can you kind of talk about what the Yankees provide to pitchers in the organization that allow them to take those strides and really unlock the best version of themselves?
I'd say the biggest thing that I've gotten and that I see that the Yankees are able to do is they're able to help you hone in on, all right, what does this guy do well? And then let's branch from there, and myself as an example, like, I've always had kind of a knack or touch for being able to manipulate the ball. So from there, I never really was great at throwing a four seam, so gravitated to a two seam sinker. And, everybody knows, like, okay, you're north south, you start out north south or east west kind of deal. So for me, it was the east west deal, and then over time you climb levels and hitters get better. Like, you need to add a different wrinkle in there. So being able to manipulate the ball and change those looks is something that was brought to me early on in my career and my time with the Yankees. Is like, okay, you understand who you are, you have an ability to put pressure in different parts of the baseball and make it do different things. Like, use that. I'm not going to be a guy that's going to go out there and, as we touched on last questions, throw 100 miles an hour, top rail, a crazy vert kind of deal. Like, so.
And one of the pitches I think stands out the most in your repertoire, and I think almost defines that movement or ability to keep guys off balance, is your slider, which is a pitch so nasty you're able to get a swing and a miss in spring training in which you hit a guy. Can you kind of speak on how you came around this slider, how long you've had this pitch in your repertoire, and what is your intent when you throw it? Like, really kind of get into what makes your slider so good.
Well, I'll start on that first. The intent behind it is definitely never to hit the guy. I got away with that one. And I think that speaks to kind of my game plan, what I touched on before. And, I'm trying to move the ball around and keep these guys off balance. So when you get a result like that, it's almost, that what's it called? The affirmation of, okay, I'm doing that. I kept him off balance. He clearly didn't know what the pitch was going to do, and I got the result. Going back to, how the slider came to be in college. Well, actually, let's go back even further. In high school, I started young, and I was really just a fastball changeup pitcher. And they tried really hard. They had me flipping, like turning a water bottle over to try and teach me a curveball. And it was just, I had no concept of it. Practiced it, developed, it turned into a gyro slider. So I threw that up until 2021, and at that point I was with the Yankees 3 years, and the slider was my pitch. The gyro slider was the pitch that got me drafted. I could spin it, I could move it around, like I relied on it heavily. And then we get back from the COVID year that we had off, and our pitching coordinator Sam Breen is asking me about my slider. I'm throwing a bullpen, and he says, "Let me see how you grip that." He's looking at the TrackMan, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't like that." And at that point, my heart sunk because I'm like, "Oh crap! Like this is the pitch that I've relied on my whole career. It's what I believe got me signed. It's got me a job, an opportunity, and now essentially my boss is telling me, yeah, it's not going to cut it. I don't like it." So, and then in that moment, he offered me a different grip, a sweeper grip, and he said, "Go ahead and turn it like a curveball." And the first one I threw, he was like, "Damn, like do that." And so that was with maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks left of spring training. And at this point in 21, I had never made a full season affiliate, and I was a senior signed. So it was, the window felt like it was closing on me. And then when I started throwing that pitch, I think it opened up a ton of opportunity. And then, I got the most innings I ever threw in 2021. And then the next year I doubled the innings, and it's just like that pitch changed my career, going from gyro bullet to more of a sweeper. I'd say as far as intent, I mean, when you get a pitch that you used to throw that was just kind of more straight down, now you get one that's got this big horizontal movement. It could be difficult to get the batters to commit to it. So, definitely early in the count, you almost have to think you're throwing it at the guy. When I'm talking about a righty, same side. And then, the lefties, it's like, if you start that one middle, it's probably going to end up a ball and maybe hit them. So it's all about shifting those lines, and it's tough to play with because it is a big pitch and batters can recognize that. So, to pair that big sweeper up, you have to have something going the other way, and that's where the sinker really complements that pitch, and then you get those two things going, and it makes them work well off each other. The step further, batters can cover two things, you know what I mean? Like they can say, okay, if it starts middle in, like it's probably going to be that sinker or whatever, or vice versa. Like they could pick the two out and work between them. Now you got to throw a different wrinkle in, like a changeup, and pick your moments when to use that. And I've messed around with now the fourth offering, a cutter or a four seam, and you're just trying to do 3 or 4 different things and read the batter's reaction to pick that moment. So we're talking specifically about the slider, but really what I'm trying to get at is that the slider is as important as the other 3 offerings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. How a pitch plays off of each other, I think, is vital. And I find it so interesting you mentioned a four-seamer because as I was pulling up your pitch types in spring training and getting a better feel if anything's kind of changed post and pre Tommy John surgery, I identified that you were throwing some four-seamers. Do you think that's a pitch you're going to try to lean into more this year? Or, again, as mentioned, just more experimental?
I feel like it was experimental for the first maybe week or 2 in camp. It's just something I'd always kind of like blurted out there, like, hey, what about a four seam? Never really caught traction, never really got the interest of anybody. And then a couple bullpens, I'm like, I just mixed it in there, and coaches are like, hey, that shape is actually not horrible. Like, and at this point, I had been going back and forth on a cutter as well. I've been trying to figure it out. So then we've started to lean into it more as kind of one of those, just keep them honest pitches, right? If I fall behind or whatever, if the batter starts really selling out for the sinker, and he's still staying on the slider, okay, well, here's the four seam, and we're talking about it may not be a sexy pitch, just as it is, right? But you put my stuff in a vacuum and you look at how it works off of each other, like, there's solid 10, 12 inches of difference in the vertical, movement of this pitch. And when it's a game of inches, even less than that is everybody, that cliche, it's like, it's a viable option. So, yeah, I'd say we're leaning into it a little bit, and it's going to be a big pitch this year.
Yeah, and kind of doubling down that fastball. Your fastball and changeup this spring in tracked games has over 16 inches of vertical separation off of each other, and your fastball is released from a super low release height. So, are those things that play into that conversation with the four seamer?
I'd say definitely, and when we're talking about it may not look like a super sexy number as it is the four seam concerned. When we're talking about that lower release point, then things start to the conversation shifts a little bit. It's like, okay, that approach is actually pretty solid with that kind of vertical movement. Now, if I'm, blowing it straight over the top, then okay, maybe we reevaluate. But probably the biggest thing, numbers aside, is being able to, let the game kind of come to you. And yeah, it's tricky when you're out there in a big league spring training game, coming back from injury, competing, trying to say, hey, like, I can get outs at the big league level. I'm doing all of this to create an opportunity down the line to then go ahead and throw something, borderline experimental. But you kind of have to take that risk and get the reaction of the batter to let you know, hey, is this going to be an option? And in doing that, I did get that, vindication or whatever. Like I got that answer, the reaction from the batters, like, hey, this is something that I can use. I don't know if you could hear that bang. My son is cranking on the door.
Hey, I hear. Hey, so I have little brothers, and yeah, we're a wild bunch. We have all brothers. I don't have a single sister. So, kind of talking about big league camping, maybe wrapping things up here. Can you kind of tell us your favorite story from spending time with the team in big league camp this year?
I got one. I don't know if I should say, but it was. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that one. I don't want to incriminate myself. Let's see. Any good stories? I got a cut. Oh man. I got the only ones that I come to mind are ones that I shouldn't share.
I feel like the universal baseball thing where it's like if you play baseball and you've got your best stories, they're usually not the ones you want to talk about publicly.
Yeah, or at least it's not mine to share. You know what I mean? Jeez.
If there's nothing you want to share, I do have. If you don't have anything that you feel comfortable sharing, I do have a backup question. So, if you want to plead your fifth, I get it. What I did want to also kind of touch on was you were a 25th round draft pick with the Yankees. The 25th round does not even exist anymore. Can you tell me what it would mean to you to make the big leagues, overcome all of those odds after battling surgery as well? Like, what would that mean to yourself? And how do you think that reflects on you as a competitor and as a person, honestly?
I mean, that's definitely been something on my mind, especially when I had to when I was able to admit to myself, hey, I need surgery. I mean, that was like a tough pill to swallow. And you said it doesn't exist anymore. So, to some degree, I kind of think like, oh, I'm playing with borrowed time, in a way. But no, like everything I've done to this point, like I couldn't have done it without the support and love from, family and friends. And now you get to this point where, okay, I got a chance to make it. And it's like the scariest thing to me was that thought of putting in all of this time and effort, all this sacrifice, having, like my wife, my family, my friends, like, I've missed out big parts of, their lives and our lives together, to chase this dream that I'm very fortunate to do. And it's like, the scariest part is, what if you don't make it? Like, like what does that look like? And, I guess the way that I've been able to, hang my hat on it is like in just doing that, like putting everything I can into it, as long as I'm not, hurting myself or my family in the process, like put everything I can into it to make it happen. And if I make it, great, I've done everything I could. If I didn't, okay, great, I did everything I could and I have my answer. But, that's not something that that's not a pill I'd swallow as easily, if I didn't make it. But that's what's going to make it that much sweeter, when the opportunity does come and, you do climb that mountain. Like, you just never know. You have to stay ready for the opportunity, stay in the moment, take care of business, and all of those thoughts, you know, a 25th round that doesn't exist anymore. Now you add surgery into it, and it's been, you know, I'm in my 8th season, not, you know, having made a debut, and it's yeah, it weighs on you, but it's also like a little bit more fuel. It's like, okay, I still got a jersey, I still got, you know, still got that chance, that opportunity, and yeah, like I guess maybe that speaks also to the competitive nature of it. It's like I'm not dead yet, you know, like I'm still plugging away on it. So.
And in a sense, I feel like those kinds of stories are ones that result in some absolutely like beloved players at the major league level. And we're rooting for you, man. I think your stuff's gross. We appreciate you taking the time to be here and share a lot of these really fun, intricate baseball and personal conversations. Sean, is there anything you'd like to plug or shout out before we wrap things up?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ryan, for taking the time, you know, and getting with me. Is awesome. I'll circle back to your question of, you know, maybe the favorite story from camp. Uh, you know, I was throwing a live BP, and you know, I get done with my live BP, and who's the first guy coming up to, you know, give me props and, you know, tell me good job and great to see you out there is, you know, Judge. And it's like I've seen him the past couple of years at the facility. He's always gone out of his way to, you know, say hi to me, Sean, how you doing? You know, how's rehab coming along? You know, I've never made a roster, never been in the big leagues, but yet the captain of the New York Yankees is going out of his way to make a guy like me comfortable, you know, and like make that relationship. And I think that just speaks a lot to what the culture is like in, you know, that locker room, and being able to experience that, you know, now firsthand this past spring. You know, it's just like, it's a really cool thing to see. And it, you know, whether or not I'm up in the big leagues or not, like that's the kind of mindset you got to have, because it's not just going to take one or two guys to win a World Series. Like, you know, Boone says each year, like he's blown away at the guys that they end up relying on at some point throughout the season, and it's usually in the biggest spots. So gelling guys up like that and going out of his way to make that connection, that relationship, like that speaks a lot to me about what they're about, you know, and it's just really cool to be a part of, to even the smallest degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I mean, for every you know, Devin Williams out there that you expect the Yankees to rely on, last year we saw Tim Hill getting big outs, and Tim Hill was cut by the worst team we've ever seen. So, I mean, I think that's a great point to be made, especially in the bullpen or pitching conversation. Even Luis Seal, like, I mean, I don't think I expected Luis Seal to win AL Rookie of the Year on February 1st or even March 20th when he was basically a lock for the team. So, Sean, again, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you guys so much. And everyone, make sure to like, comment, and check out Sean Boyle's games when he pitches either at the minor or major league level. We're going to be rooting for you, Sean. And everyone, we'll see you in the next one. Let's go, Yankees.
Perfect.